So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a lantern, fairly low poly lantern. I'm going to make sure that this is a hanging lantern so it doesn't need a base. It'll have some sort of ornate piece on the bottom and at least one chain link that we can then export. And then we're going to have to go in and set up all of our supporting edge loops. Per usual, I start off with a cube. Now, here's one thing to always consider if I'm actually making a prop. Before I even start this thing, I want to know what units I'm building this in. By default, it's going to be centimeters because I want this thing to feel more lifelike, and because I don't use centimeters in my normal life, I'm going to come in and change this over to inches. I try to do this for every single prop that I make. That way, I build up a library of props as I go, and I can always pull from them if I'm doing some sort of environment. There's a lot of stuff that I don't have to make it again because I've already made it. All right, we're just going to scale that guy up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this grid, don't need it. I'm going to set this guy up to be a 4-panel lantern. And the first thing I'm going to do is chop some holes through these panels. So a few different ways we can go about that. We could use Booleans like we did in the intro to modeling class. We can also use our extrude offset here. Pull these guys in a little bit. Maybe do it by 2. We could delete these faces and then rectify the geometry on the inside. Now, one problem with going about it this way is now we have these edges that have to be bridged. There could be potentially more work than doing it with Boolean. Also, so if we come in here, oh, there we go. Oops, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. There we go. Bridge those guys. Then we would have to come in here and figure this geometry out. Right. You can already see that this isn't really the greatest way to solve this problem. It is solving it, but not as quickly as we might have wanted. Our topology isn't super clean. It's clean, but it's not the way I would like it to be. So that's one way to go about creating this entire thing without Booleans. The next way, let me get back out of that. The next way would be with Booleans like we did in the first class. So to do that, I'm going to create another cube. Let's make that 7.5. Drag that guy out here. Let's make it 7. There we go. I'm going to make that a little bit longer. I'm going to stick that back through. I'm going to hit Control D to make a duplicate, and then hit E, and then hold J to snap the rotation around. Now, because I moved that thing, it's not perfectly centered. Let me make sure that that dude is centered up fast. Snap that to the grid. There we go. Now Control D, E, rotate J. There we go. So now it's centered up perfectly with my first object. Select my 2 objects. Come in, Mesh, Boolean. Difference. Notice that it chopped out that globe, or that cube. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now my geometry is already set up on the inside for the most part. I have a few little areas that I have to clean up on some of these corners. If I'd set my model up perfectly from the beginning, those would already be taken care of, but 6 one half dozen another at this point. Okay. So I'm just going to do a little cleanup work here with my multi-cut tool. Okay. This is one issue you do get with multi-cut. At times, it decides to.
So because you didn't delete the history Booleans?
That can be part of it. There's also an issue with Booleans where it starts trying to make its own connections. So like if we were to click on this face, depending on how it breaks things up, you can end up with some really screwed up face results where it'll actually see this face taking up this entire area, but it'll show it to you in a different manner, which isn't great. Basically, it's because I didn't do those multi-cuts first in order to give it something to link into properly. That's one of the biggest offenders. So yeah, it's creating all kinds of wacky stuff. Let's see if we can delete the history on this guy real fast. Tried to make when I first started learning to model, I discovered Booleans. I thought, man, how cool would it be to model a block of cheese? I don't know why I thought that was cool, but because it was Booleans, you know, cheese was the first thing that popped in my head. You know, just a big block of Swiss cheese covered in holes. After about 3 hours, I just gave up because that Boolean tool was creating faces that just overlapped all over the place and just deciding where to add extra cuts. And at that time, I honestly didn't understand what the heck was going on. So Needless to say, the cheese didn't happen. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty good here. Got all of our main faces set up. Now it just comes to adding a nice top and adding some nice ornamental bottom and sorting out the overall form, you know, making sure that it's something we want. I'm going to come in side here. I'm going to add a few multi-cuts.
You making another layout?
Yeah, so the new assignment, our weekly 3, we're going to be creating a hanging lamp inside of Maya, setting up all of our supporting edge loops, and then importing that into ZBrush, doing all of our sculpting. And then, yeah, we'll be making some additional subtool duplicates in order to create the chain, and then also inputting or inserting the candle itself, which will basically just be a cylinder primitive in ZBrush, and then sculpting the candle off of that. So, piece of cake. Piece of cake. All right. So I'm going to add a little bit of form here. And notice when I'm sculpting this stuff, I'm not getting crazy with details yet. Right now, I'm really trying to think of overall profile. Once I get the overall profile sorted out, then I'll start to worry a little bit more about any details that I may or may not want to model into the base model. So remember, this is just kind of a down and dirty base model. After we finish this thing, it's going to go into ZBrush anyway, so let's start to extrude ourselves base off of this. I'm just using some really quick access extrude stuff inside of either my translate or my rotate, not rotate, scale. I can hold down my shift and get access to those extrusions. Which really cranks up the overall speed. I'm going to do one and pull this down to a point. Pull this down a little bit more. really looking at shape right here. Trying to find something that's appealing to me. Okay. Overall, that's not too bad. Maybe I do something on these guys, maybe make like a little overhang here. Do another extrusion, kind of push this down. Yeah, I don't like that form. I like that better. All right. Now we need to create a little area for the chain to hook into. Could get big and chunky on this thing. Or we could keep it nice and spindly. Kind of match this. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more ornate. We put a little ball right up on top. This, that, squeeze that in.
I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
I didn't know Workstation had a good 3D model viewer. Like truly.
Say what now?
That link you sent.
Yeah.
That reference image. I didn't realize they had a good 3D model viewer.
The Marmoset model viewer.
Yeah. Well, it actually, I think it's a video. I think that's a movie video.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all actually brand new. They just input all those fancy new features into ArtStation maybe a couple months ago. I'm almost positive it was this summer. All right, so I got this guy. Now, depending on what I was making this for, I could just shove a piece of chain through here and call it a day. But if this is going to get zoomed in on, obviously I'm going to want to have an actual hole for that chain to go through. So I tend to like to do things a little bit more correctly. So we'll do the hole. Okay. Do a quick offset. Scale those guys in. Something like that. And it doesn't want to let us bridge. It's still thinking that about the last extrusion. All right. Then we come in and we create ourselves a little chain link which is super easy. We cheat and we grab, technically it's not cheating. This is what this thing's here for anything that's a torus base shape. Alt J, rotate it 90 degrees. Go over here to my torus settings. I'm gonna shrink down a few of these little settings here. Let's try 0.2. Not bad. Let's take these subdivisions way, way down. Maybe like 8. And 8. That'll work. And I'm going to rotate this like so. The scaling. Now you'll notice that this current scale is lined up with the object, so it's going to scale like so, but I actually need this thing to scale with the world. I could also just freeze the transformations and it'll pop it back to that. So this is just another way to make that happen. Move this into place first. It's a little gross. Okay, there we go. There's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. So it's probably not politically correct these days.
You seen that guy that can skin a deer with a tennis ball?
Yeah,
That's super cool.
yeah, that was pretty cool, man. That's surprisingly effective. Okay, bring this guy up just a wee bit. Right. So the basic shape is there. Now I just want to start thinking about any finer details involved in this form. For instance, these little spindly bits on the side, are they too spindly for my likes? Do I want to thicken them up? Do I want any sort of accent pieces? Any sort of curlicues or anything like that on my corners? Anything hanging off the bottom that would be ornate? And then after that, we'll need to go in and start setting up all of our, what happened here? That's interesting. Something happened to my edge. These are things you want to be able to catch before it happens, or before you move on to final model. Now, a really quick way to fix this would be to look and see if my other side of my model looks good. And it generally does. So we'll look at this.
Delete half of it.
Yep, gonna delete half of it and then mirror it over to the other side. Make sure I got all the faces. There we go. We'll hang her on. Do my mirror. This is in Z axis, positive Z. There we go. That works. Now, ideally, in order to keep decent topology, I probably would want to put myself a nice center split going this way as well. I'm just using the multi-cut tool, holding Control, and then hitting my middle mouse click. And that gives me a perfect cut right in the center. All right. So now I'm going to come in. I'm going to grab these guys right here. I'm going to scale these in just a little bit to change up some profiles. Center guy first. It's going to give me something to line up those other ones too. It's a little nicer. Take this, swoop it in just a touch more. Actually, I'm going to add some subdivisions of this first. Now I'm starting to get into slightly finer details. Soft select. Crank this out just a wee bit. Pull that in where I like it. That's kind of neat. Hit B, turn soft select off. Control Shift X, they grab my multi-cut again. Do a similar thing up here. But try to visually fix this around just a little first. And then come in and grab my middle guy. Nice thing about the soft select is it allows me to make really large adjustments to the model, but smooth adjustments over a large area. So we'll go with this for now. Next thing we have to do is set this thing up with its supporting edge loops. So I want to get my transforms frozen, delete all that history, rather important. Also going to make sure I name these properly again. Parent these together, middle mouse click and drag the chain link onto the lantern. Then also need to make sure I delete the history and freeze transformations for that chain link. Start off with this chain link. Add a bevel to that, an extra segment. I kind of like this boxy end look. let's say that I actually want this chain to maintain some level of boxiness on these angles. If I want that, I also want to come in and grab these outer edges. Because it's going to swing on the inside, I'm going to let that be smooth, but I'm going to get my details for the chain on the outside. Let's see. So we'll add a bevel, an extra segment right there. I'm going to take my chamfer off and pull that fraction in just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to accentuate that boxiness a little bit as well. I'm going to pull that out. Scale that up just a wee bit. That way it feels a little extra boxy. Then we'll go ahead, pop that dude in, bring this fraction down a little, something like that. Not too bad. And the rest of this should be pretty okay. Maybe we do that to this guy as well. Actually, what we'll do on this is keep the chamfer off. So this is actually a really hard edge. This as well. So two different styles of bevel. Turn that off. We'll bring that fraction in a bit, 0.2. And if we need to check to see what this is going to look like, I hit 3. So that's going to smooth maybe a little bit more than I like it around these edges. I get to keep this, but I lose some of that boxiness on the other edges. So hit 1 to go back. Come into your edge loops. This is pretty much how it goes, trying to figure out where you like your detail, how you like your detail, and where you need those supporting edge loops for when it does do the smoothing. So let me take this fraction down, add a segment, my fraction down a little bit, let's say 0.2. There we go. That's got a cooler look. All right, so that guy's set up. I'm gonna delete the history on him. Just so that I don't lose this, I'm also gonna quickly save my model. Just gonna throw this on the desktop. All right, so next thing we need to do is set up our support loops on the lantern itself. This isn't going to be really difficult. We basically just select the edges that we want to remain hard and start adding bevels to those. doing this, you also want to think about where do these edge loops head, because you want as much continuity in your topology as possible. Nice flow. It's always good to go through and double and triple check absolutely everything. I'm doing this inner loop so that it helps connect these guys. This is another instance where if you wanted to, you could chop this model in half, work on the bevels for half of it, and then mirror it back. Looks pretty good. Just do a quick once over, make sure I like what's going. Slap bevel on this, hope it doesn't crash. Add a segment. And I always go in and check my bevels to make sure that it looks like I got everything that I wanted. It's a whole lot easier to go back at this stage and add something in if need be than it is to. I'm looking at my topology and I'm thinking it might be a good idea to actually add these guys in. I can foresee there being a little bit of an issue right there in that fold if I don't. So I'm just going to hit undo twice and add these angles in my bevel. I hit bevel again, Control B. Add that extra segment. Yeah, I like this topology a lot better. Now we're not pulling up into triangles. Now we're maintaining quads and stretching those quads all the way across our model. That's much cleaner. If I want, I can crank up my scale just a little bit. I don't want to get too crazy. I don't want to get anything overlapping. Try 0.7. If I click on this and go to 3, I can see if anything goes wonky on me, and it looks like in the smooth preview version that it's going to hold itself together real nice. Is good. Reselect it, go back to 1. Need to make sure I delete my history on that, which was just a bevel, but still history. And now, because we've already checked it in our smooth preview, we can set this thing up or export this thing out after I save the model. Do my save. And then do an export as an FBX. Take this guy out, come down here to my FBX export. We'll scroll down. Currently, the FBX plugin version is 2019.5. We don't want that. We want to get rid of that if we can. FBX format 2013. There we go. That's the most friendly version for exporting your FBX to ZBrush currently. You can also come in and get rid of anything else that you don't want. If you don't want your cameras, I don't want cameras. It doesn't have animation, but I don't want my animation if there was one. Don't want lights. Don't have audio, don't need audio. All right. Export this. I'm just going to throw that on my desktop for now. And this is now ready to be imported into ZBrush and sculpted on.